Today we'll be speaking about Avraham's legacy. What's Avraham's legacy? You can't take it with you. Remember Jack Benny? Jack Benny says, if I can't take it with me, I'm not going. Remember, Masha? That's what he said. But he went anyway. But Avraham's legacy is, in Pashas Vayera, the guests come, he says, Ve'ekcha pat lechem, and I will take for you a morsel of bread. What do you mean I will take for you? You should have said ve'etna, I will give you a meal. What do you mean I'll take for you a meal? What you give to others, Avi, you take with you. That meal will be gone. That tzedakah money that you give to poor person will be gone. But the ekcha, when you give tzedakah, when you do an act of chesed, Masha, you're taking it with you to olam haba. The ekcha, any chesed you do, right? It'll be eaten up. It'll be right, used up. But the mitzvah that you take with you, said Father Abraham, the ekcha. So you do a chesed for others, you take it with you to olam haba. That's Avraham's legacy. And Sarah's legacy. Very strange in this week's Parshat, Chayei Sara, we speak about death and marriage. The death of Sarah and the marriage of what? Of Rivka and Yitzchak, right? Now, Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Bet, Rabbi Avraham, very strange. They learn out marriage from what? From a burial plot, first of all, right? Just like Abraham paid money, kesef, for burial plot, so the Talmud learns, so just like what? You can purchase a burial plot with money, you can also what? Get married with money. Isn't it bizarre that you learn marriage from death? What's the message over here? The difference between finished and complete. If you marry the right one, Avraham, you're complete. You marry the wrong one, you're completely finished. No. Right? Pretty strange. That you learn out marriage from death. What's the message over here? What's the message? Well, the message could be, it's strange, in Kabbalistic terms, the death of a tzaddik is called a halula. In Kabbalistic terms, Achmiel, when a tzaddik dies, it's called a wedding. Isn't that strange? Tzaddik dies, it's called a wedding. Reunited, and it feels so good, right? The neshama is reunited with its source, it's called a wedding. The Gemara in Moed Katan, page 25, says, you Rabbi Yosef, כששצדיק נפטר מן העולם, קדוש ברוך הוא משמח עם הנשמה כחתן עם הכלה. Yael, Yiddish? Moed Katan tells us, page 25, when a tzaddik dies, the Kadosh Baruch Hu is sameach. How do you say that in English? Rejoices with the neshama as a chassan rejoices with what? With a kala. So, marriage is a new beginning. And in a strange way, death is what? A new beginning. Therefore, the Parsha is called Chayei Sara. But the Parsha speaks about her death. So the Parsha should be called Mitat Sara. Why is it called Chayei Sara? The life of Sarah, when it speaks about her death, because when a tzaddik dies, she begins to live. When a tzaddik dies, she begins to live. And that ties in with the Haftorah. The Haftorah, King David is on his last leg. He's dying. And Bathsheba says to him, his most beloved wife, Vaytomer, Yechi Adoni HaMelech David LaOlam. Yechi Adoni HaMelech David LaOlam. May my master, the king, live forever. What is she mocking him? He's on his last leg. He's on his way out. So Bathsheba says, may my master, the king, live forever. Same idea. When a tzaddik dies, he begins to live forever in Olam Haba. Yechi Adoni HaMelech David LaOlam. Pretty interesting. Now, last week's Parsha, we learned about Achnosas Orchim, right? The legacy of Avraham and Sarah, Achnosas Orchim, Gedol Achnosas Orchim, the Talmud says it's greater. To host a guest in your home is greater than what? Than receiving God's presence. Why? Why should it be greater? Why? That's Avraham and Sarah's legacy. In fact, it says here in Bereshit 23, verse 2, Sarah died in Kiryat Arba Hebron. Avraham came to eulogize and cry for her. In Bereshit 23:2, Masha, the word lifkota, to cry for her, there's a small kaf. Did Moses run out of ink? Why did God tell him to write the word lifkota, to cry for her, with a small kaf? Many explanations. One explanation is he didn't cry too much because she's in a better place. She's in a better place.
And he realized that?
And he realized that. And therefore, at a Shiva house, you say, Hamokoim Yenachem Eschem. Why do you say Hamokoim? God has many names. Why not Kel Shaddai? Why not Elokim? It's a great nechama. Because your beloved wife or relative is not in your place, she's in a better place. She's with the place. God is the place of the universe. So therefore, she lived a full life. And therefore, he cried, but not hysterical, because she's in a better place. She's with the place. But another explanation, the word kaf in Hebrew means a hand. It also means a spoon. Doesn't my palm look like a spoon? When Sarah died, Abraham's ability and capacity to extend a helping hand was what? Diminished. His better half died. So lifkota, there's a small kaf. Abraham's ability to extend a helping hand was greatly diminished when his better half died. So the legacy of Avraham and Sarah is Achnosas Orchim. Why is it greater than hosting God's presence? How could anything be greater than that? When you welcome a guest into your home and host him, what are you doing? You're giving up your personal space, right? For the other person. You're sharing your personal living room with the other person, aren't you? You give up some control over your space by sharing it with someone else. You're imitating the boss. Who's the greatest machnas areach? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. God creates a wonderful universe, a beautiful world, and God gives up his space for us. Therefore, it's called outer space. Not a joke, give me space. God shares his space with us, his world with us. He gives up some control by giving us free will. So when we do Achnosas Orchim and we host a guest in my home, I am imitating God. We are in God's home every day. God invites us into his beautiful home every day. And God gives up some of his control and ownership of the world by sharing it with us. God created the world through tzimtzum. Right? What does tzimtzum mean, David? He restricts himself, he limits himself, kaviyachol. He pulls into himself. Therefore he's called the Lord of hosts. Hashem Tzevaot. He's the Lord of hosts. He is the hospitality host. By sharing his wonderful world with us. By giving us space, by pulling in and making room and sharing with us. So when we host a guest in our home, we're also giving up some of our space, some of our control and ownership with someone else, a stranger, into my home. Maybe I'd rather be alone with my family. I'm giving up my space. I'm limiting myself, my ownership for the time that he's there. He's using my facilities. Who am I imitating? HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
The Lord of hosts.
The Lord of hosts. Hashem Tzevaot. So when I do Achnosas Orchim, I am also doing tzimtzum. making room for others as Hashem makes room for me. Wow. But why should it be greater than hosting what? God. Says the Maral, because we all have a Tzelem Elokim. We're all created in the image of God. That makes a human being, says the Maral, the greatest tangible manifestation of God's presence on earth. What's the greatest tangible manifestation of God's presence on earth? A human being who has a Tzelem Elokim. You hear, says the Maral. And even though God came to visit Abraham, Avraham knew he would have even a greater interaction with God, even greater by what? Engaging with another person who contains what? A Tzelem Elokim. How do we honor God? By honoring his Tzelem Elokim, the human being. When we do Achnasas Orchim, we, like Hashem, are also engaging in Tzimtzum. We're restricting ourselves, pulling in, giving up ownership, sharing our personal home with someone else as God shares his home with us. What's God's home? The world. But the Maral says when you interact with another person, you're doing a 2-for-1. You're interacting with the other person, but you're also honoring what? God. Through the person's Tzelem Elokim. It's a twofer, Avraham. Jews love bargains. So Avraham knew that when he treats the Orchim, he hosts them, he's also hosting God. 2-for-1. Pretty incredible, right? So anyway, we learn out over here, Avraham purchased land in Eretz Yisrael. He purchased Hebron, right? And the Talmud learns marriage again from buying land. Strange that the oral Torah has to learn out that just like you can purchase land with money, you can also get married with money, right? That's where you learn it out from. What's the message over here? That you learn out marriage from a burial plot? You don't think that's bizarre? There's a halacha, if there's a wedding party coming down in the intersection, and there's loyalty a funeral, what's the halacha? Who makes way for whom? The wedding party makes way for the funeral. That's the halacha. Why? You want to hear a bad joke? Why? Don't throw tomatoes at me. Because the funeral, you're only burying one. But a bad marriage, you bury two. I told you it's a bad joke. I told you it's a bad joke.
It's a good joke.
Right? Avraham, it's a bad joke, right?
That's good.
So therefore, the wedding party makes way for the funeral party. But anyway, getting back, why do you learn out Kiddushin, marriage, from buying land? It seems to be bizarre that the oral Torah has to go fishing, just like you can buy land with money. You can also get married with money. So David, I have an explanation. Avraham bought land, Hebron, right? Eretz Yisrael. First purchase of land in Eretz Yisrael. I think the message is, at a wedding, you're passionately in love with your bride, right? That love that you have for your spouse, you have to have that love for Eretz Yisrael. So I think, therefore, the oral Torah learns getting married from buying land in Israel. That just like when you get married, you're madly in love with your spouse, that type of love you have to have for what? Pisgat Zev, remote, right? Rechavia. Okay? I think that's the message. The same love affair that you have with your bride, the same love affair you have to have with the land of Israel. Okay? I think that's the message. One of the messages, anyway.
This is real estate is unique, so is your spouse.
Right? Real estate in Israel. You have to have that same love for the real estate in Israel as you have for your bride. And therefore, the oral Torah learns marriage from buying land in Israel. Okay, Avraham? You can give it over, no charge. Okay? The Parsha speaks about the death of Sarah, and then the marriage of what? Of Yitzchak and Rivka. Now, Avraham Avinu calls his trusted servant, who's in charge of his entire real estate and vast holding. Avraham Avinu was a huge corporation, bigger than U.S. Steel. And who's in charge of it all? Eliezer Evet Avraham. His name is not mentioned once in the entire Parsha. He's only called Evet Avraham. Evet.
9 times.
Not once is his name mentioned. This guy, can you imagine his resume, Bainish? Hamoshel B'chol Ashalo, CEO and CFO, chairman of the board of Abraham Incorporated. Right? And also the Talmud says that he was Abraham's main disciple, who would teach Torah to everybody. So he wasn't just in charge of Abraham's financial fortune, but also in charge of Abraham's spiritual treasure. And he's only called Evet Avraham. Why is that? Why is that? Never, his name is not even mentioned once.
So how do we know his name was
The-
Eliezer?
The Talmud says that this Evet, the oral Torah tells us, that this Evet was Eliezer. The written Torah just calls him Evet, but the Talmud says that this is Eliezer, the most trusted servant of Avraham Avinu. So he calls him in, and he charges him that what? You have to go find a wife for what? For my son Yitzchak. Yitzchak doesn't go because Yitzchak is not permitted to leave Pisgat Zev. Kiryat Moshe. Yitzchak, Avraham left Eretz Yisrael, right? And so did Yaakov. But Yitzchak, Rashi says, was not permitted to leave because he was the Ola Temimah. So he could not go to Shmutz La'aretz. So therefore, Avraham had to send what? His trusted servant to what? To bring back a wife for Yitzchak. To bring back his wife. So Avraham tells him that I make you swear by the God of heaven to find a wife for me and not to find a wife from the land of Canaan. The God of heaven. So Rashi wonders, what do you mean God is only the God of heaven? Isn't he also what? The God of earth? Look at Bereshit 24:7. Bereshit 24:7. He tells his slave, his Eved, that the God of heaven will bless you to make sure that you are what, David, successful. So Rashi said he's only the God of heaven. Isn't he also what? The God of earth as well? So Rashi makes a very strange comment. Rashi says, Rashi quoting Chazal in chapter 24:7, Rashi, now he's also the God of heaven and earth. Because of me. But before I got on the scene, he was only what? The God of heaven. He was not the God of the earth because no one acknowledged and recognized him. He wasn't known. Thanks to me, he's also what? The God of heaven and earth. But when I was a rookie in my mission, Aviyesha, he was only the God of heaven. This is Abraham who called himself a dirtbag. Anochi ofa ve'efer. That's how a guy dirtbag talks. He pats himself on the back. Hey, wow, he's the God of heaven. And thanks to me, he's also the God of earth. Before me, he was only the God of heaven. Is this consistent with Avraham being Anochi Ofra Be'efer Beinish? It seems to be a little, what is he, patting himself on the back? And what's the Torah telling me? No, the Torah is not history. The Torah is God's GPS, God's personal system. What's the message over here? Am I a dirtbag? Or God can't make you without me? Make up your mind. Well, Abraham, you're mixing me up. Says the Kotzker Rebbe, message. Human being was created with two hands. Masha, why two hands? It says on one hand, you have to have Anochi Ofa Ve'efer. One hand, you have to realize that you are just dirt. In the other hand, Bishvili Nivra Olam. The whole universe was created only for me. I'm God's partner. And without me, and the trick in life, Avi, is to know what? when to open up which hand. You got the whole world in your hand. You have to know when to open up which hand. That's the message of Abraham. If I'm always a dirtbag, I might become a beach bum. Doesn't matter what I do. Then which hand do you open up? God can't make it without thee. Abraham says, incredible. Yeah, now he's the God of the heaven and earth. But before I got on the scene, Masha, he was only the God of heaven, he says. Not the God, he wasn't the God of the earth, because no one knew him. Thanks to me, he's now the God of earth. This is Avraham Avinu talking. In life, you have to know, David, when to open up which hand. Yes?
Yeah, you said that in Chayei Sara that Eliezer was not mentioned by name.
No.
But okay, but Lech Lecha.
Right.
15.
There he is mentioned by name. But I'm said Chayei Sara is not mentioned by name. In Chayei Sara he's not mentioned by name. He's called Ha-Eved. The Eved. Even though Abraham had hundreds of Avodim. He's called Eliezer Ha-Eved. The special servant. So Chazal say that that is Eliezer. But he's not mentioned in Chayei Sara. Right, he's mentioned in Lech Lecha. But on the mission here, he's only called Ha-Eved. Ha-Eved.
Rabbi,
Yes?
there was a problem
With what?
with him getting a bride
For Yitzchak. Why?
because he wanted his own daughter to marry.
Right. He wanted his own daughter, and yet he what? Gave up his own happiness for his master. Therefore, he's called Eved Avraham. He's never mentioned by name. His entire life, he lived only for his master. Only for his master. Even when it went against his own interest. And therefore, the Talmud tells us in Masechta Sotah that 3,800 years later, where is he now? In the same mechitza with Avraham Avinu. Can you imagine? This guy was an Evet from Canaan, the lowest of the low. And he reached the level that for all eternity, he is what? How do you say mechitza in English? This way your table's waiting. In Olam Haba, he's in the same, what's the word, compartment? Of what? Because he was totally mevatel himself to Avraham Avinu. He could have said, I'm the CEO, CFO, Abraham Incorporated. But his entire life was for Avraham Avinu because he know. He said, what does he say? He introduces himself to the family. Look what he says. In Bereshis 24, verse 34, Bereshis 24, verse of Vayomer, Evet Avraham Anochi. Now how do you say I in Hebrew? Ani. He should have said Evet Avraham Ani. Why do you say Anochi? If he has, what does Anochi remind you of? Anochi Hashem Elokecha. The way to Anochi Hashem Elokecha is to be an Evet Avraham. You hear this, David? If you want to get to Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the way is to be an Evet Avraham. To be an Evet Avraham. Now, he was born an Evet Kanani. Right? He was born an Evet Kanani. His destiny was what? Was to be what? An Evet. He had to be an Evet. So he turned his, what's the message? Why tell me about it? Every person is born with a handicap in life. Whether physical, emotional. He was born with a handicap. He was born an Evet from Canaan. So he could have been an Evet to what? To Joe the bum. But he chose to be an Evet to whom? Avraham Avinu. He turned his handicap into an opportunity for spiritual growth. If I have to be an Evet, I might as well be an Evet to the greatest human being on the face of the earth. Avraham Avinu. What a message. The person should turn his handicap into an opportunity for spiritual growth. And that's what you learn from what? From this great man, Eliezer, the Evet Avraham, who came from the cursed nation of Canaan. The cursed nation of Canaan. And he rose to become a superhuman being. We'll see soon how what kind of great person this man was. Rashi makes a strange comment. Rashi in Genesis 24:42 says, the table talk of Abraham's slave is more precious to God than our Torah. Aviezer, are you getting this? What are you talking to? Rashi says it. Yofa sichotan shalavdei avot, the mundane table talk of the slave of Abraham is more beautiful to God than our Torah. Because the story of Eliezer is repeated how many times? Twice. He went here, he went there, he saw Rivka, he ran, she ran. Repeated once, and then he tells the whole story over again to what? To the family. And many super laws in the Torah are only hinted at. There's a letter missing here, an extra letter there. So what's going on? Yofas yichosan shal avdei avos lefnei hamokom yitarosan shal bonim. Parshat shel Eliezer kfula b'Torah. V'harbe gufet Torah lo nitna ela v'remiza. Why is Eliezer's mundane table talk worthy to be repeated twice, and many important halachas are only hinted at? We know the Torah is so economical when it comes to what? Letters. So why repeat the story twice? Well, if you compare the story, Avraham, you'll see that when Eliezer told over the story to the family, he lied. He lied. Sunday is my mother-in-law's yahrzeit, so if you can come 2 o'clock to help you make a minyan, my topic will be truth versus shalom bayis. When truth conflicts with shalom bayit, who wins? That's Sunday at 2. But now, Eliezer also changed the truth. He first gave her the jewelry, and then he asked her, by the way, who are you? But when he tells the story to Rivka's family, he changes the truth, right? He says, first I asked her who you are, and once she told me that she is Abraham's family, through Nahor, Abraham's brother, then I gave her the jewelry. But he lied, because he first what? Gave her the jewelry, and then he asked her. But they shouldn't think that he's weird, so he changes the truth. The question is, why did he give her the jewelry without even asking her who she was? Isn't that strange, Avi? First investigate, who are you? And then give the jewelry. What? So what? What would it hurt to say, who are you, girl? Again, as Masha mentioned, Eliezer had a daughter. And he wasn't a robot. He was terribly hurt that Avraham, who trusted him, not just with his financial, physical fortune, but with his spiritual treasures as well, would reject him and go look for what? For a girl of Avraham's mishpacha. Avraham's mishpacha were idol worshippers. He is a righteous Ger Tzedek, Ger Toshav. Avraham's right-hand man in charge of his physical fortune, spiritual treasures. You think he wasn't upset that Avraham would reject him? He felt himself slipping. What's going to be with my daughter? He knew if he began asking questions, who are you? Oh, you're the daughter of Nahor. Nahor's an idol worshiper. You're no good. He could have told Abraham, she's no good. My daughter doesn't worship idols. And yet Rivka's family does. So he knew in his heart of hearts that if he began to question her, he'd come up with 101 reasons why, Larry, she's not the one. And he said, Abraham, look, I tried. They're all no good. You leave it up to me. You left it up to Abraham's judgment. They're no good. Then Abraham would have no choice but what? His own daughter. But he knew that's not what his master wanted.
You can't take it.
He knew what?
You can't do it. The Canaanites were cursed.
But everyone no choice. Who is he going to go to? They all turned him down.
But didn't Eliezer convert? Wasn't he circumcised?
Rashi says, right?
So his daughter.
Avraham said as follows: Bini Baruch v'ata orur, ve'ein orur medabek bebaruch. Even though you personally are a superhuman being, and so is your daughter, but you come from a cursed nation. And when you want to build a nation of Israel, you can't start off with a Canaan. But Eliezer was a human being, he wasn't a robot. One minute. So, he knew if he would begin to question her, he would come up with 100 reasons why she's not the one. She comes from her family worships idols, her father, her brother. But he knew that this girl belongs in Abraham's house. There's a word that keeps repeating. It's not just that she did chesed. She ran and she hurried. She ran and she hurried. Those same words are by Father Abraham. Not just that he did chesed, he did it, how do you say, with a bren. I'm so excited. He ran and he hurried. Over and over again, the Torah repeats that by Abraham, and over again, Torah repeats it by whom? By Rivka. It's not that she did chesed, it was with a bren. The same words of Abraham. He ran and hurried. He knew this girl is the one. But if he'd begin to question her, he'd come up with reasons why she's not the one, because he has a vested interest that she shouldn't be the one. What's going to be with my daughter? Who's she going to marry? A lowlife from Canaan? So with his last ounce of strength, buddy, his last ounce of what's the word? Self-control, he gave her the diamond tennis bracelet. Now there's no turning back. This great man. Therefore his story is repeated not once, but what? Twice. Derech eretz kodba laTorah. This great human being, his humility, his midos, going against his own self-interest for his master. That story is worth repeating, Ayel, not once, but what? Twice. Derech eretz kodma laTorah. That's what you learned from here.
Right?
Yes?
Is this,
Why don't you have a seat?
I'm falling asleep.
Oh.
Is this,
As long as I'm awake, I'm happy. What? Yes?
is this what we should learn from Eliezer on how we should serve Hashem? Is give up our personal ideas and go with his idea?
All for the boss. Remember that book, All for the Boss? That's what Eliezer teaches, why he was such a great human being. He comes from the cursed nation of Canaan. And he rose to superhuman strength. So he turned a handicap into what? An asset. That's what the Torah is teaching. Everybody's born with a handicap. Whether it's physical, emotional, financial, whatever. But that's the test in life. What are you going to do with that handicap? Look at the great Eliezer. He has to be a slave. Became a slave to a superhuman being, and he became a superhuman being. It's called Chayei Sara. Parshat is called Chayei Sara. He remains anonymous. Evet Avraham Anochi, he says. Evet Avraham Anochi. Because the way to get to Anochi Hashem Alakecha is to be what? An Evet Avraham. Is to be an Evet Avraham. So he changes the story. They shouldn't think he's a weirdo. What are you giving her jewelry without asking her? But he knew if you begin to ask, he'd lose out. His fatherly instinct would get the better of him, and he'd turn her down. So he did an act. Now there's no turning back. She is the one. He saw not just the chesed, but how she did the chesed. This girl belongs in Abraham's house. Yes? What?
I have one question for you.
Only one.
Why is this called Chayei Sara?
It's speaking about her death, right?
Yeah.
Should be called the death of Sarah.
Right.
So we said when a tzaddik dies, she begins to live. The death of the body is the birth of the soul. Chayei Sara. And therefore we said Bathsheba and the Haftorah when King David is on his last leg, she says to him, may my Lord King live forever. She's not mocking him, because when a tzaddik dies, he begins to live in Olam Haba. That's how the Parshat connects with the Haftorah. With the Haftorah.
Everyone's soul lives when anybody dies.
Well, it depends. A Russia goes the other way. You know, the Russia goes to a different place, right? It's amazing. The first Jewish bride, Rivka, when she sees a chassan, she takes the veil and she what, Yehuda? She covers her face. Now, this took place 3,800 years ago. We know the Torah is not a storybook. Who cares that 3,800 years ago, the first Jewish bride, when she sees her chassan, what? Puts a veil on. Who cares, Avraham? What's the GPS? Rivka's the mother of the Jewish people, right? Isn't she? The Torah testifies that she was beautiful. Miss Israel. Torah testifies. She told her chassan and her future descendants, I am much more than a pretty face. A beautiful face, she was beautiful. Must have been a beautiful, she was beautiful. But what was she telling her husband and us? Just like the veil is not me, it's only a covering. My beautiful face is not me, it's only a veil that covers my godly soul. Don't just marry me for my pretty face. That's only a veil. Just like the veil is not me, it's a covering, so my body is only a covering for my godly soul. I'm a soul person. That's what the mother of the Jewish people was teaching us, and therefore the Torah writes that she covers her face, that the face is only a cover for the soul. Just like the veil is a cover, the face itself is only a cover, because the person is not his body. The person is what? His neshama, the godly soul. That's what she was teaching. It's amazing that Yitzchak brings her into his mother's tent. See that? Bereshis 24, verse 67. He brings her into his mother's tent. Why is that important? He marries her, he loves her. Why is it important he brings her into his mother's tent? Why is that important? Says Rashi something incredible. The entire time when Sarah was alive, the Friday night candle remained lit all week. Yes? And the dough, the bread, remained fresh and hot all week without a toaster oven. And there was the Shekhinah hovered over the tent. Whose tent? Not Abraham's tent, Sarah's tent. And when Sarah died, these miracles went away. The candle went out, the bread didn't remain hot and fresh all week, and the Shekhinah, the cloud, disappeared. Hey, Abraham was still alive. What do we see, Masha? Who's greater? Sarah's much greater. Because these miracles were manifest only in what? Sarah's tent, not Abraham. And when she died, the miracles went away, and when Rivka came back, these miracles came back. Says the Holy Nachmanides, the Mishkan in the Midbar was a replica of whose tent? Abraham's tent? Sarah and Rivka's tent. Holy Ramban says, God says, build me a Mishkan, which will be a replica, not of Abraham's tent, not of Yitzchak's tent, of Sarah and Rivka's tent. Because those same miracles that you had in the Mishkan, Avi, where'd you have? Sarah's tent. The Lechem Aponim remained hot and fresh all week. Where'd you have that? Sarah's tent. The Ner Maravi in the menorah remained lit all week. Where'd you have that? Sarah's tent. And the cloud, God's presence hovering above the Mishkan, in the cloud, and at night the pillar of fire that you had in the Mishkan, where did that come from? Sarah's tent. So the Mishkan was a replica, says the Ramban, a dugma of the tent of Sarah and Rivka, not Avraham. These three miracles, Masha, Why? Why these three miracles took place in Sarah's tent, in the Mishkan? So the Sifsei Chaim says, Shalosh brachos keneged shalosh mitzvos shanoshim nitztava. The Mishnah in Shabbos says there are three mitzvahs that are uniquely given to what? Women. And the Rosh Tevos is Chana. Chala, Nida, Hadlokas Haner. The Mishnah in Shabbos says, Yosef, those three mitzvahs are uniquely given to women. Acronym is Chana. Chala, Nida, Hadlokas Haner.
What is that?
What?
What's that last one?
Lighting the candle. Those miracles took place in Sarah's tent. The candle remained lit all week in Sarah's tent, right? The challah, the dough, the bread remained what? Fresh all week. And the Shekhinah hovering over her tent testified that she was what? She kept the laws of Nidah. She kept Taras HaMashpacha. Why are those three mitzvahs given specifically to women? If you want to sum up the entire Jewish religion, David, in one acronym, CIA, NYPD, is Chana. Judaism is all about Kiddushas Hazman, Kiddushas Hamakam, Kiddushas Haguf. You do any mitzvah of the Taryag. Let's play a game, but not time now. Any mitzvah of the Taryag, the purpose is either to sanctify time, either to sanctify place, or to sanctify the body. That's Judaism, any mitzvah. These three mitzvahs personify that. Where's challah baked? In the home. That's Kedushas HaMakayim. The laws of Nida is Kedushas HaGuf. Sanctification of the body. And at Lokas HaNeir, you're sanctifying time. That's the whole Jewish religion. Why is it given to ladies? Because we guys might drop the football. So therefore the Mishnah says these mitzvahs are given to women. Because that's Yahadut. Chala is Kedushas HaMakayim. Nida is Kedushas what? Haguf. And Adlokas Haner is Kedushas Hazman. That's Yahadut. That's Yahadut in a nutshell. Says the Rambam, why is that Yahadut in a nutshell? Why are all the mitzvahs, Masha, to sanctify time, Adlokas Haner, to sanctify the body, laws of Nida, and to sanctify place, Challah. Where's Challah baked? In the home. Why is that Judaism, Beinish? Why? Says the Rambam, the difference between Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba, what's the difference between this world and the next world? Time, place, and body. You hear what's going on over here?
Nachman, you said that?
The Rambam says the main difference between the physical world and life after death is in the physical world you're bound by place. If I'm one place, I can't be in the other place. If I'm here, I can't be there. So I'm bound by place, I'm restricted by place. I'm restricted to the body, and I'm restricted to time. In Olam Haba, in the life after death, you're not limited to time, you're not limited to space, and you're not limited to what? To body.
Forgot the fourth difference.
Three. Those are the three.
There's no Facebook either.
So says the Rambam, therefore that's Judaism. Because the tafkid of Judaism, Emmanuel, is to connect Olam Hazeh with Olam Haba. So therefore Yahadut is summed up in what? Kedushas Hazman, Kedushas Hamak, and Kedushas Haguf, Chala Nida, Hadlokas Haner. You know Rambam? That's the difference between heaven and earth. And Judaism is the tunnel or the bridge. Kimei Hashamayim, Kimei Hashamayim al Aretz. So therefore all the mitzvahs have to be all about what? Avraham. Sanctifying time, personified by Lokas Haner, sanctifying the body, Nida, sanctifying the home, the place, Chala. Because in Olam Haba, there is no limited time, place, or body. I ain't got no body. Judaism's the bridge. That's why that's the mitzvot between this world and the next world.
Is there abbreviation for that?
Chana. Chala Nida Hadlokas Haneh. That's Judaism in a nutshell. Kedushas Hazman, Kedushas Hamak, Kedushas Haguf. Says the Rambam, that's Bidiyuk, Olam Haba. The afterlife, which is God, the afterlife is God's mind. God is not limited to time. God is not limited to place. And God's not limited to what? God ain't got no body. So after we pass on, we come united with Him. Reunited, and it feels so good. Let's not be in a hurry to get there. After 120 only. But Judaism is that bridge. And therefore all the mitzvahs are those three. And therefore women have it because we men couldn't be trusted. We might fumble the football. What?
You do have a place.
What?
You have a place in the
No, but not a physical place. The neshama is not restricted to a place. Therefore, Eliyahu Hanavi, how could he be at 9,000 brisim at the same time? Maybe the 9,000 brisim going on, right? How can he be at all the brisim at the same time? Because he's a soul. A disembodied soul is not limited to a body or to place or space. He's on God's frequency. He can be in many places at the same time because he's not a body.
You dance at more than 2 weddings.
We can dance at more than 2 weddings at the same time. You can dance at more than 2 weddings at the same time. And Pesach night, he goes to how many seders? Huh? At the same time.
More than brisket.
Right? Now, the Torah says in Genesis 25:1, Avraham added and he married a woman called Keturah. He was no spring chicken. Avraham was 140 years old.
That was Hagar.
That was Hagar. Why is she called Keturah?
She was pure.
So Rashi says she's called Keturah because her deeds were beautiful like incense, like Ketoret. Her deeds were beautiful like incense. Klayaka says Rashi seems to contradict himself because when Avram sent her away, Rashi says that she relapsed back into idolatry. And now Rashi calls her Keturah. Her deeds were beautiful like what? Like incense? Rashi seems to contradict himself. And why is that the metaphor, incense? Hey, incense, come here. I mean, what about the Rashi before when Avraham told her to leave? Rashi said she went back to idolatry, back to her father's house in Mitzrayim. And now her deeds are beautiful? Says the Klei Yokar, something incredible. You're sitting down, I wouldn't say that Klei Yokar says this. One of the incense, the 11 herbs and spices, remember the kernel? 10 smelled beautiful and sweet. One, phew. One of them smelled very, very bad. Reach Ra. The Reach Ra represents sin. But through tshuva, the Reach Ra becomes a Reach Nechoach. You hear what the Klei Yokar is saying? Yes, she relapsed. Hagar did. But then she did tshuva by hava. When you do tshuva by hava, that smelly sin becomes a win. He quotes a verse in Isaiah chapter 40. Ki nirtza avona. Your sin has been accepted. God says to Isaiah 40. It is Rabbi Yosef. Ki nirtza avona. Her sin, who's her, Avraham? Jewish people have been accepted. What do you mean her sin has been accepted? Says the Klei Yokar, after tshuva, gama avon, mirtza mukubal. After a person sins and does tshuva ma'hava, that sin becomes what? A win. That sin becomes acceptable to God. So therefore she's called Keturah, incense. Yes, when she left Abraham, she relapsed. But it's a Yerida L'tzorech Aliyah. Sometimes you have to go down in order to go up higher. Keturah taught us that, says the Klei Yakar. Yes, one of the incense has a foul odor. That represents our sin. But through tshuva, that foul odor becomes a reach nechoach. How do you say reach nechoach in English? Sweet-smelling perfume. Where the sin becomes a win. Tshuva mehava. Isaiah 40. The sin becomes accepted to God through the power of what? Tshuva mehava. Who taught us that? Hagar. The mother of what? Abu Mamzer. I mean Yishmael. That's pretty amazing over here.
It's interesting that Sarah told Avraham to throw Hagar and Ishmael out, but yet after Sarah dies, he goes back to...
Beautiful. David Harrell is ahead of me. He must have ESP. Rashi says, now keep in mind the Torah is not a history book. Genesis 24:62, it says Yitzchak came from a place called Be'er Lachai Roi. Who named the well Be'er Lachai Roi? Who? Hagar. The well of the living one who sees me. Hagar. When Abraham and Sarah kicked her out, she wound up in a well somewhere, and a malach had a revelation to her and told her she's going to have a son. She called the well Be'er Lachai Roi, the well of the living one who sees me. Who sees me even in the middle of nowhere, in my pain and affliction. Remember, Sarah afflicted her. Remember, Rabban says, therefore the Arabs afflict us, because we afflicted, Sarah afflicted the mother of the Arabs. So the Ramban says, amazing Ramban, that it's a punishment. The Arabs stick it to the children of Sarah, because Sarah afflicted Hagar. So the children of Hagar, the Torah says she afflicted her, calls it a miscarry, gave her backbreaking work. The Torah says so. That's how we know that Judaism is true, Yael. Tell it like it is. No cover-ups. The great Sarah says Nachmanides made a terrible mistake. She afflicted Hagar. It's a boomerang. Therefore, the children of Hagar are afflicting us until today. Hagar prays. A malach comes to her and tells her she's going to have a child and blesses her. So Yitzchak went there, David. Why did he go there? Rashi said he went to bring Hagar back to Avraham, his father, to remarry her. Do you think his mother would approve?
No.
What's going on over here, David? What's going on over here? Sarah said, kick her out. Kick her out. Avraham loved her. After Sarah died, Yitzchak saw a sensitive son that his father was what? Lonely. So the Torah says he went to fetch Hagar to bring her back to her father, even though he knew that his mother and her were not on good terms, right? There's a powerful message over here. A powerful message that you have to respect your stepmother. So while his mother was alive, he couldn't have an interaction with her because of upset his mother. But now that his mother was dead, he saw his father was lonely. So the sensitive, loving son that he was, he went to fetch her to bring her back to Avraham. And they had 6 more children. They had 6 more children. And he was 140 years old. What's the message? A person should try to have children even late in life, right? You never give up. Avraham, like you say, onwards and upwards. Moving on up. Torah is not a history book. The Torah is GPS. Person should remain active as long as he can and try to have children as long as he can.
You're not kidding.
What?
You're not kidding being active.
To be active, right? There's an amazing Tosfot in Chagiga, page 2. Tosfot and also Bava Basra, 2 places. That every time a person has intimacy with his wife, even though they can't have kids anymore, they're doing the mitzvah pruvu. Tosfot in 2 places. In Bava Basra and also Masechta Chagiga. Tosfos usually doesn't repeat himself, but this, when every time a husband and wife are intimate, even though the wife cannot conceive, they do the mitzvah pruvu. Are you getting this, Amram? Tosfos said, take it to the bank. So the Ben Ish Chai explains that even though they're not creating a physical body, they're creating souls in heaven. Through the act of being intimate with your spouse, even though the wife and the husband are no longer capable physically, the Ben Ish Chai says, Yehuda, Ben Ish Chai, I know your wife likes the Ben Ish Chai, in Parshas Vayechi, says you're creating souls in heaven. Remember, I'm a soul man. So after 120, Avraham, after 120, see all of these hundreds of souls, where do they come from? From your acts of intimacy with your spouse. The Ben Ish Chai said it, you can take it to the bank.
So you're recommending we should go home and practice? You're recommending we should go home
Father
and practice?
Abraham, what? It's amazing. The Torah is not stories, the Torah is what? God's manual for successful living in the year 2018, Rabbi Yosef. Do you know that? It's a manual how to live. Torah is not stories. Torah is God's personal manual to lead a successful life. That's what Torah is all about.